Hello friends and welcome to the Weekend Catch-Up Club, the coffee morning show brought to you live every Saturday direct to Facebook and Twitch and available later on demand at youtube.com/gamertagged and podcast services. Grab yourself some snacks, grab a drink, kick back and hang out with us for just a little while because joining me today is a very special guest. It is the writer, narrative designer, producer of Spider Lily Studios, Else White. Welcome to the podcast, Else. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. That's a lot of hats you have to wear. Writer, narrative designer, and producer.
It is quite a lot of hats. Yeah, I've just recently managed to sort of half offload one by hiring another narrative designer. But yeah, there's a lot goes into running an indie studio, as it turns out.
Yeah, so please tell me a bit about, obviously, who you are, what Spider Lily Studios do, and of course, the recent Kickstarter, which has just, I think, has come to an end just recently.
Yeah, about almost 2 weeks ago, which means I'm almost got the funds in my bank account. That will be exciting.
Fantastic.
So I'm Els. I'm originally from Australia. I moved to the UK about 6 years ago now, I guess. I started Spider Lily Studios about 3 years ago. Mostly because I really wanted to be in the games industry and I knew I wanted to make games. I was doing a lot of freelance sort of mobile writing, so for, interactive fiction.
Yep.
And I knew I wanted to make my own games and be in the industry, but there's not a lot of positions for narrative designers out there if that's your chosen field. So I almost on a whim decided, well, I'm just going to make my own and do that and also do freelance. And that's how I'm going to, be in the industry. And it so we released Retrace, our first game in the beginning of 2020. So that was fun. And then sort of that went pretty well. So I decided, well, I'm just going to keep trying to do this thing and make it on my own and see how it goes. And so we started development on Schrodinger's Catgirl, late last year, just sort of on its funded by Retrace and freelance stuff. And finally got it to a place where we were ready for a Kickstarter. So that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to being able to focus on the development now. Not worry so much about getting the funding.
Sorry, I just realised I had myself on mute. I was trying to be polite there because to let you talk and there's no background noise. Sorry, listeners and viewers. I was just saying there. Kickstarter must be a huge relief, knowing that highly, highly stressful. You got to bring in funding for your game, try to make the project happen, try to appeal to, I guess, as many backers as possible. And I just checked out your Kickstarter page just before coming on to chat to you, of course. And it was amazing to see that you had hit your target. But not only that, there was over 460 backers, which had, done the necessary pledging to bring Schrodinger's Catgirl, a visual novel adventure, to life. That must be pretty an awesome feeling.
It is a very awesome feeling because a lot of people they certainly tell me anyway, that there's not really a market for visual novels out there, certainly not Western ones. And I was like, well, I think there is. So seeing 460 people agree with me was very nice. And then also to give me their money, to agree with me so much they were willing to give me money. It's a huge relief and I'm very grateful.
Yeah. So How obviously big is Spider Lily Studios? Is it just yourself? Are there other disciplines there? Can you tell me how that came about to start up Spider Lily Studios?
So it is technically just me if we're talking in the sense of hired employees. We have Bayou, who is our social media / community manager and the amazing person who handled a lot of the Kickstarter, and I attribute all of its success to them, really. So they work on a freelance basis, and then we've got all of our artists, our music partner, Harmonic Blend, who did the music for Retrace, and they've come back for Schrodinger's Catgirl, which is very cool. I love their music. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of freelancers at the moment, basically. Yeah. The ideal is to get to the point where we can hire people on a more regular basis, but that's how it is at the moment.
Well, it's tough for indie studios in general. Just, at what point do you start to make staff full-time to just wanting to get a project happening? And you have collaborators and freelancers are obviously, wonderful for that. But, my wife is self-employed in her business, and she's always got this quandary about, okay, at what size do you have to get to in order to be able to take on like the responsibility of like full-time staff, right? Because it's like having the constant business coming in to justify an entirely other salary. It's not just a case of you can't just be a little bit busier. You have to be substantially busier because there's a whole lot of extra things that have to be worked out. As do you need to then go into like a bigger premises? Do you have to provide kind of like benefits and things like that for them as well? Workplace laws and I can imagine it's a highly stressful can of worms sort of situation where you just want to make this incredible, visual novel project and have it come to life. And at that point, hopefully, more funding comes in. I would imagine that would be the dream to appeal to like distributors or, other backers that could say, okay, here's even more money to give you that kind of security, that peace of mind to say, okay, now we can just focus on the stretch goals, really bringing our vision to life, and we can just like take the stress off and let us just make the game.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a lot of people say that actually having a funded Kickstarter is like super important if you want to start talking to publishers. But that would be amazing to partner with a publisher or something and get to the point where we can have that sort of stability. So we're sort of there now with the Kickstarter money, but like being able to push that forward, 2 years, 3 years, and sort of have that amount of the studio's future planned out in advance would be amazing.
Totally. I can imagine that it's just like highly stressful, and that can alleviate just a lot of pressure. So talk to me a little bit about the process of Kickstarter. I only know it from being a backer of certain projects. I've backed some things here and there over the years, and fortunately they have always been fully backed. Therefore, they've been fulfilled by the companies, and I've received whatever the product was. One was a backpack, one was something for the Switch, a little kind of like handheld grip thing at the time that was fully funded. But my knowledge of Kickstarter is only top level from, okay, I'll give like a few dollars here, a few pounds here and there to an interesting project. But I can imagine it is just completely maybe like a bit of a minefield for those who want to be on the other side to like, how do you get people's like to be interested to back a project and like even sign up to sign up to Kickstarter as well?
Yeah, it is a whole thing. So and it's weird that there's not a lot really of like there's sort of general advice out there, but so much has changed since Kickstarter first started as well. These days it's very much like, because of all the projects that have failed from the early days, people are a lot more, they really want to see a very polished presentation for, you can't just show up with some basic boxes and a mechanic and be like, hey, fund it. Which is why we went to a lot of trouble to get the demo. That's what we spent so long on, getting the demo looking and feeling really nice before we went for the Kickstarter. So we started, honestly, we probably should have started talking about it much longer in advance, but we started like 3 months beforehand, I think. And it's just, we did a lot of experimenting. So we would just be trying different things all the time, trying different platforms, trying different variations on the tweets. We did Someone is on her scratching post. You'll have to excuse her. I don't know if you can hear that.
It's not really coming through, but hey, if you want to bring the cat into the podcast, all the merrier. That's absolutely fine.
She's on Dilly.
Oh, look at that.
She's at the that's her desk chair. That's what she says. She's head of management. What was I talking about? Kickstarter. Yeah. It was a lot of experimenting with different things, trying to get people to, just getting people to take a look at it. I was lucky I had my very good friend Gary help me out with the trailer and making sure that was, really well done. You pretty much just have to grab people's attention and be like, hey, you've got like 3 seconds. You're like, hey, look at this. Yeah. And just trying to get them to give you the time of day. And once you've got them on the page, then you're more like, you've got half a chance. But yeah, it's just a lot of trying to get people to, and getting it out there, because a lot of, especially I do most of my social mediaing is on Twitter. That's not where the gamers are, as it turns out. A lot of game devs, not a lot of gamers. So, which is all well and good, but we did a lot of experimenting with other
the
platforms.
marketing's the marketing side of it then is like a whole other can of worms as well, just to kind of, just as you say, get eyeballs on the project. Is it like paid social campaigns and that kind of thing, or is it other kinds of avenues to drive that engagement?
Well, I didn't get much use out of the paid stuff, to be honest. I tried it a little, but it was really just making use of hashtags and trying to get people to share it, asking people with big followings nicely if they'd retweet it. A lot of talking to streamers as well, which a lot of people think like narrative games and streamers don't get along, but I think they can get along. Just that depends, how you frame it. And
I think it depends on, it's not always. I had this conversation about somebody. It was actually Jay Kokowski from Dead Good Media PR, and he was saying, because his main role is like head of influencers, and he was saying, which was really interesting, about it's not always about getting like the top streamer to partner with. It's about having, it could be like a much smaller streamer, but with a highly engaged audience, to then maybe even drive interest that can be way more valuable than like the mega streamers who aren't necessarily always engaged directly with the streamer and what they're playing. They're just like there to be like, I guess, part of the machine gun fire chat that's constantly ticking over. Whereas somebody who's smaller, who has maybe only say like a few hundred people on every stream versus the thousands, can actually talk directly to the streamer and then talk about the product and talk about what they're playing. And then they'll maybe get like questions about the project and about the game, to say, oh wow, this is a visual novel. This is so interesting. Like, and then they can ask questions like, who did the art for it? Who were the developers? And then that streamer can then be like super valuable, but they're essentially like a really small streamer in the grand scheme of things. So it's fascinating how influencer marketing has become so prevalent in the industry over the past few years, and he was saying like there's no publisher or like big game release or any game release really that doesn't have to have some kind of influencer marketing strategy. And it's so interesting how the industry's changed for that mentality now, because it is vastly different as to what you can do now with your projects and getting interest in your game ahead of time. And it's like a minefield, but it's so tricky to work the algorithm, I guess, on different platforms like YouTube and Facebook Gaming and everything. It's crazy. I applaud you for managing to get the backing for your project already. That's a huge win for you.
We were so relieved. We got funded, I think, with like 3 days to go, and we were just like, because people tell you that it's going to take over your whole life and you're going to be exhausted and stressed, but I think you can't really understand what that means until you've actually done it. Like, I knew it was going to be stressful, but I didn't. It surpassed all my expectations.
Yeah.
But yes, it was very good to get it done. We were very, very relieved.
Did you fall into that horrible pattern of always refreshing the page to see where it's at? You know,
it's terrible.
Constantly.
I actually, if you look on my Twitter, we literally got funded right before I was about to turn my phone off for the night. I got the email notification from Kickstarter that we'd been funded, and I was like, "Well, I'm not sleeping."
Yeah, pop the champagne. We've done it. We've got a live project.
Yeah, it was. But yes, there was a lot of refreshing, a lot of stressing and pulling of hair.
Yeah, it must have been such an emotional moment as well, because you don't know if this thing is going to happen, and then when it does, again, going back to that kind of that weight getting lifted, even if it is just temporarily, it's like a huge load off and now we can go to work and deliver this thing. So obviously we've been talking around about Schrodinger's Catgirl quite a lot without actually explaining what it is. So please tell us what this game is.
Okay, well, Schrodinger's Catgirl is a visual novel / point and click adventure. If you've ever played Ace Attorney, it's that kind of, you explore and you talk to people and click on backgrounds. The plot is you are a team of investigators who specialize in the supernatural, and you are investigating a manor that was abandoned 50 years ago, has been abandoned. And last night, a couple teenagers thought they'd have a bit of fun and explore it, and one of them got horrifically mauled by something that's lurking in the manor. So you are off to explore, and what you find is that the manor is filled with these time-space distortions which allow you to view the past and the present, as well as everything you do, so every puzzle you solve, the way you pick up evidence, what evidence you choose to look at, and the choices you make will actually determine the truth of what happened. So instead of deciding what the future will be, in a sense, you're actually changing the past. So, whether or not, the key question is the girl in the manor alive or dead? And your choices will determine whether she's alive in the present or if she's died in the past. That kind of thing.
Cool. It sounds like super, super interesting. Like, what kind of, mechanics and twists and turns does the story take? Without obviously spoiling anything, because we want to keep it fresh and a surprise for as many people as possible.
I'll do my best. So a lot of it is you're investigating. It's almost like a detective. I was inspired a lot by 3 games. So Ace Attorney, obviously, Resident Evil, with the way that you explore and you find these, scraps of information from, the people, trying to piece together what happened in the past, and also Until Dawn. So what I really liked about that game was the way that what you did while you were actually exploring, as well as the dialogue choices, could affect things that happened in the game. I really liked that, so I wanted to incorporate that into Schrodinger's Catgirl. So it's very much you're exploring this manor, something's hunting you, so you've got to be careful, and you're picking up evidence. You can combine evidence to sort of draw conclusions and decide. You're building your case of what you think has happened.
Okay.
And there's also puzzles to solve, and I think that just about sums it. And there's a lot of there's a lot of different ways the story can go. So it's this drama that happened between the Catgirl, who was an experiment by this crazy scientist. Crazy is not a nice word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so it's it's sort of the drama and the tragedy of these people that were living in this manor, and this girl who's a half cat, half human hybrid, and what happened. What happened between them and what caused the manor to be abandoned. And you're sort of unpicking that and figuring out what happened, and then seeing what the consequences of that were in the present.
Wow.
And trying not to get killed by a Catgirl.
Are there like multiple outcomes and plot lines
Oh,
that
yes.
can affect the story?
Oh, yes. So that's what we're working on at the moment. I had a session with my fellow narrative designer, Leah, yesterday. There are, unfortunately, we can't share it yet, but the diagram for the story
Yep.
is already, we've only done a tiny bit, and it is already like unbelievably complicated. Very cool, but it's like, it's got all these, it's like a flowchart, but it loops back on itself, and there's all these different ways it goes. But yes, the idea, I really wanted there to be a lot of different possible outcomes.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fun. I like that kind of
it makes replayability like such a huge thing as well. If you go through the game and maybe like missed certain threads or plot lines or characters for that matter, you think, oh damn, I got to the end and I didn't resolve that. And then you can go you go back through, it makes it still like fresh and entertaining, and that may have an impact on like something, and hopefully it will blow everybody's mind to say, whoa, did you do that in the game? And then, you know, going to those water cooler style of moments to say, in my playthrough, this is what happened. Yeah. And I remember having those conversations, obviously pre-lockdown, when we could actually have the water cooler moments in Detroit Become Human, where again that's got like this crazy spiraling flow diagrams of where the story can go and the repercussions and the butterfly effect, I think it kind of is referred to as. It's like, oh man, there's so many other things that could have happened that could have changed the story. I love those styles of games. I think they're so interesting, and it means that, you know, even on like a basic, not a basic level, but a level like Mass Effect does. Essentially, it's like a third-person shooter with like RPG light, but the multiple dialogue trees and everything like that will change different relationships and things. I think they're one of my most enjoyable style of games, because it's usually like super interesting characters, really interesting through points for the story arc, and you don't always necessarily know like what your actions are going to cause in the future as well. So I'm excited to check this out. I can't wait to. Is it? I think is it early access on Steam at the moment, or like I can't remember what it said on the page.
It's currently on itch. I have to upload it to Steam. That's on my to-do list. So that's the demo, which is the one that we had for the Kickstarter. I would like to put it on consoles at some point, but we will see. So it's currently on itch for Windows and Linux, because Juju very kindly built it for Linux for me.
Can I ask you to add a stretch goal to get it on Mac as well? Because I'm a Mac user.
I know. I used to be Mac only, so I feel the pain of the Mac users. I'll see what I can do.
just drop it on one of your freelance. Say, oh yeah, just like add the Mac one in there for this one guy who wants it. This one person who wants it.
There's at least 3 of you. I can say that, and I always feel I definitely feel the pain. But the other thing, sorry, going back, the thing with the influences, and that's another thing that I really like about the branching storylines, is something I really love with narrative games is watching influencers play them and seeing what outcomes they get. But I think the good thing is that then you can also enjoy it with your own playthrough. You don't feel like you've seen the whole story.
Yeah.
So you you get the enjoyment of watching a streamer play it, and then you can, if they missed something, you're like, I wish they'd checked that out, but they didn't. Then you can play the game yourself.
Yeah, I think Ace. You mentioned Ace Attorney is such a really good like touch point, because that as a series was always like super niche in terms of who would buy it, but it seems to be like with the release of the most recent one, it seems to have Chronicle. Like just resonated and just like exploded. That's the kind of the moment for that series to be a bit more mainstream. So it's a really good like touch point to reference that, I think, for like advertising it to not just the audience, but like to publishers potentially as well, to say like it's kind of like this, but it's different, and we're doing other things, we're doing our own thing. There's lots of narrative branching threads. And it gives people, it's the old adage of saying it's very lazy to compare it to something else. That's like such an easy thing to do. But I think a lot of people need a touch point to say, oh, okay, to get their head around something. And it makes it more kind of, I guess, relatable to say, oh, okay, so I can kind of expect or kind of know what to expect when I dive into this thing. And it'd be great if it did explode and more people just checked it out and checked out the demo and, backed the project as well.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, it's definitely, obviously I think that. But, heck, I was going to say something really smart, but I forgot what it was.
You can say it again later on if it comes to you.
Okay, I'll let you know.
So obviously, I'm guessing it says it's fully backed on Kickstarter, but I would imagine it's like an ongoing process until the project is essentially done and you're happy to release it. I'm assuming people can continue to pledge and support as much as possible.
Yeah, we are in the middle. I have a very neglected Ko-fi, if you're familiar with that site, which is like yes, I made it ages ago, and some very kind people have, thrown some money at it, but I haven't really done much with it. So now that we've finished with the Kickstarter, I'm going to try and use that a bit more. Definitely anything that people can, if anyone wants to, we're going to have some of the leftover merch, because obviously you can only buy things like posters in certain quantities. So we'll have a little extra leftover from those for the physical rewards in our shop. And any extra funding that we get from the community or from publishers is definitely going towards, like, we'd love to have voice acting, ports, obviously huge. I was surprised at how well the console ports for Retrace did. So that's something I'm really looking forward to doing. Voice acting, more art, making the game better, and making the game faster as well. Which
interesting.
Obviously, there's only so fast you can go. Like, it takes an artist this much amount of time to do a background, and so I can't make them go any faster. That's how fast they go. Yeah. But for me, the less amount of time I have to spend doing other things, making money so I can pay my rent and pay my artists.
The important stuff.
Yeah. It's such a thing to be like, to have the Kickstarter and be able to go to the artists and say, hey, look, I've got the money. It's ready to go. I'm not going to have to be like, okay, I need you to pause for like 2 months while I figure things out.
Yeah.
But, I was on a thread and I forgot the thread.
I can imagine that is a major concern for like a lot of projects on Kickstarter, where you think it's all gonna happen, it's all gonna be funded. You're into production, and then things happen. Things end up taking more money. They take up more time, and then you have to pause production. And especially if it's like freelance network as well, to say, look, we're gonna have to just stop the project for a while until we can work out some funding situation, and then. The risk, of course, is that they might not become available again when that funding comes in and you're ready to proceed again. It's God, I don't envy it at all. It's I can tell that it is a terrifying position to be in, and it's like once the money does come in, it's like, oh my God, here we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's very, because I've been a freelancer as well, a freelance writer, so it's very I understand when it came to hiring my own freelancers, I was very I really want to give you guys stability, and that's the thing. If and when the studio gets big enough that I can actually provide that stability and be like, hey, I can pay, I can guarantee that I'm going to pay you this much. That's it just means so much to people, and it's just that extra little bit of something they don't have to worry about. So that's what's really nice about having that sorted. So yes, that is why we are going to refresh the Ko-fi and get that sorted. And you mentioned just earlier there about a dream goal for the project would be to obviously add the voice acting, which adds obviously way more complexity to it. And then
we've seen how powerful that can be for games. Just actually recently, when Disco Elysium came out on the PlayStation 4, it's coming eventually to like the Switch and to the Xbox console. But I played that originally on, because it released originally on the PC and the Mac. Didn't have any voice acting, and I think the nature of that game as well. It's a very dense game in terms of it's world language for a start, but also the amount of reading that you have to do. And yes, it's brilliant, but God, it's hard going sometimes. And I was honestly overjoyed when they announced the PlayStation 4 version would be fully voice acted. And it added this whole, the thing what I loved about that as well, added this whole other dimension to the characters. Because originally, I guess it's the same as reading a book versus watching a film, I suppose. Whereas in your mind, you may have an idea as to like what the characters are thinking, what they're feeling, how they sound. Whereas when it's actually voice acted and the developers are then saying, actually, no, this is how the character is, this is their personality, this is their inflections and their tone of voice. And it gives us it makes another playthrough obviously incredibly rewarding, but then it goes, whoa, I had a completely different idea in my head as to what this character was going to sound like. And I guess that could be like a double-edged thing. It's like, do you risk like the fan base not then connecting with the character who they thought sounded in a certain way? But saying that, it can be amazingly rewarding as well, because then you like the character comes to life in a way that didn't before, and that's obviously hopefully only a good thing as well. But challenging. Everything. Game dev is not easy. Everything about it is challenging.
It is. There's just so many layers to it, and there's a lot goes into it. It's very, very complicated, but it's also really rewarding when you actually get it done as well. So I wouldn't do anything else, I think. So
is your cat an Easter egg or something in the game anywhere? I gotta know.
So, well, first off, that is several people backed at the level to have their cat in the game, so you can keep an eye out for them. We're starting to get the reference photos for those, so I'm very excited. We've got some very fun pose requests. Tilly is not currently in the game, but she probably will be somewhere because she's very important. She is, I don't know if you saw her earlier, she's a calico, so she's orange, black and white, and so is the Catgirl. The patterns aren't the same, but it was important to me because I think calicos are neat.
So she's in there spiritually, if not literally then. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
As the main star.
Exactly. But it's been a lot of, certainly Shan, who was sort of initial background artist. We brought on the second Sasha to help them out. But Shan sort of set the tone for the backgrounds and did some pretty incredible cat-themed scenes in the manor, because the whole thing is that the guy is cat obsessed. So there's some very amazing cat artwork and statues and all sorts of fun stuff hidden in the backgrounds. So
that must be super cool. So what's it like for you to like have this idea of like what you want the game to be, and then seeing an artist kind of take your writings, your kind of your ideas, you're briefing them essentially, and then seeing it start to come to life visually?
It is the most rewarding feeling in the world. It is unbelievable. It's so cool. I don't have words for how, especially when you get it all together, when you've got the sprites and you've got the UI and the dialogue all set up, and you've got the music and the backgrounds, and you load it all up, and you load it, and you press play, and it all works, and it's there just like it was in your head. Oh my, it's incredible. It really is. Yeah. And the artists are just like, they're amazing. I'm not always great at explaining what's going on in my head, but I'm lucky to have artists who are very good at improvising based on what I say and have really great senses for sort of figuring out what would be appropriate, and they come up with some amazing stuff. So I'm very lucky.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm assuming the pretty much the entire production has been like working from home, working remotely, obviously with freelancers, different locations. So lockdown hasn't necessarily affected as much as maybe like other like premises based development projects. However, a lot of the like events and networking events have obviously been heavily impacted as well, but they're starting to come a bit more regular. Like EGX is actually, when is it? It's this weekend, next weekend, or a couple of weekends from now?
Yeah.
Can't remember now. So those kind of things are obviously amazing opportunities for you to talk, schedule meetings, distributors or other developers, to obviously show the project, talk to fans as well, and get the demo in front of them, get that kind of immediate interest and feedback. As the event scene is pretty much invaluable for that. And all of last year, everything was obviously cancelled. It's still kind of cancelled, but sort of trying to get back on its feet. How has that been for you, and what does it look like, I guess, like going forward? Do you want to get back to like getting in like an event situation to be able to show the game and talk to people and networking again for something like this?
Yeah. So stop me if I ramble too long on this one, because this is something I've thought about a lot. So I have this, and I won't go into it, but I have a health thing that makes it kind of hard to do a lot of events. So obviously I love physical events. EGX 2019, I think, was when I went. Was amazing for Retrace. Like, we quadrupled our wish lists over the weekend. It was amazing. And, I met so many people and I had some great meetings, but I find it very physically exhausting, so it's a bit difficult for me. I think probably if the studio was bigger and I could send someone else, that would be more ideal, but that's not an option right now. So I do miss those events, and I miss hanging out with people and having physical meetings and all of that. But actually, being in lockdown, and when people were able to schedule these online events, as they're not ideal. So a lot of things will be like, they have these things where it'll be publishers and developers, and they sort of set up these like almost speed dating things, where it's like you have blocks of 30 minutes and you just publishers sit there and different developers log on and talk to them, and you've got 30 minutes to pitch your game and meet people and make connections. And while obviously that's not ideal, I actually felt like because of that, it was a lot more accessible for me personally to have that as an option. So I hope going back to normal, whatever that's going to look like, we can kind of find a hybrid of it, because I think, and especially with, Spider Lee Studios is all over the world. So I live in the UK. Bayou is, I think, on the west coast of the US. Trass is in Germany. That's our musician. I think Sash is in Poland, and Sandra/Maxi is in Spain. So we're kind of everywhere. And I'm really happy about that, because it means, it doesn't have to, you don't have to live in a big city to, work in games. I forgot what the beginning of this sentence was. Something about, I hope that we can make things more accessible when we do get back to live events. You can't replace live events, and they are so amazing, especially I think for the fan connection. I think you can't really replicate that, or we haven't found a good way to replicate that online. I hope we do. But the actual physically being there and people playing your game, it's pretty amazing. But I hope we sort of figure out a hybrid thing, so that more people who have health problems, people who live somewhere where they can't get to these events, I hope we can find a happy medium.
Yeah.
I think we are starting to go that way, so that makes me happy.
Well, it makes events just far more inclusive as well then, because it's not always about having to travel there and queuing up for literally hours before you even get into it, and then queuing again when you're waiting to try out a game. It's not a good experience for anybody who does have health problems, or it's just it's a very challenging situation for events, because they want to get in as many people as possible. And I think, if my memory serves correct, one year at EGX, I was there with my friends, and I think we saw a stat that they were taking like 60 to 70,000 people a day. And if you imagine the space of, this was when it was still in Birmingham actually, and I could talk at length as to why I preferred Birmingham as a venue as opposed to London, but we'll maybe save that for a future podcast ranting episode. But that's a lot of people to get into not a massive footprint, not really. And there's a lot of, the queues are just 3 hours long a lot of times, or some of them anyway. Certainly the big games anyway. And they're double backed on themselves. Queues start to overlap and get in each other's way, and it becomes really, really chaotic. And it's a shame, because I totally agree, events are can be wonderful, and I love going to events. I get to talk to people. I get to see friends that I've made just purely by going to events. And getting to meet up with them and talk about the games and talk about, oh, did you play this game? Oh, it was a 3-hour queue, but it was so worth it. Even though it's never worth it. It's really never worth it. But I would love for more smaller events. But again, it's difficult, because saying that, the big events are quite something, quite an event in themselves. It's an event to go to, a big event, and that's what we treated it like. It's that's the only time that we're all of our group could go there and go to this big event, and that's the only time we'd see each other for the whole year a lot of times. So it became more than just a gaming event. It became this big social thing that we could get to just geek out over video games and talk to smaller devs, talk to some big devs. It's a real variety. And but it's just a challenge, because they're never really that accessible at all, and it is a lot of high stress for the stands and those that are managing the stands and running the stands, and the developers to, oh my god, what if this build crashes? And then that's the only takeaway. That's the only thing that people are talking about, is this build that we've loaded on a USB stick to get it to run. It just crashes. I've seen it happen, and I've seen the panic in the developer's eyes to say, that wasn't meant to happen. This kind of thing. And they're stressed, because they're thinking that, okay, that's going to be the write-up of the game. That's not, a responsible person wouldn't report on something like that, because you have to understand that it's usually a really old build of a video game at that point, just for demo purposes and event purposes. But
and there's no QA like the public.
It's so true. It's so true. I know, the public don't hold back. I was chatting to a friend of mine. Oh no, actually, I saw it on Twitter that he'd posted, I beg your pardon. Who he was the creative director of the game Roki, which is on the Switch and on Steam.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful game. Alex Canaris, I probably butchered his name. I apologize, Alex. Anyway, he was saying that one year he was at EGX, and there was a child, maybe 12 or something like that, was playing a build of Roki, and the kid was making all these amazing sounds, right? Ooh, this kind of stuff. It's really cool. And then once the kid was finished, he obviously wanted to talk to the child to get his opinion. And the kid was like, yeah, it's okay. And that was the response. And I was saying, I was found dead at the scene kind of thing. It just killed him, because he got this nonchalant, it's okay, whatever, I'm going off to Call of Duty, that kind of thing. And poor Alex is all his passion, his life's work, and this kid was just like, meh, it's fine.
The honesty of children, yes.
I know. Oh dear, I know. So you don't have to worry about that, I suppose. You're not missing out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And also, the other good thing is, Schrodinger's got less so, but certainly Retrace is very much probably don't let your kids play this. Probably.
It's a little bit too dark for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Els, So before we're just going to wrap up now, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and to hearing the plight of, you know, the Kickstarter model, you know, indie studios trying to get funding, and the best way to obviously kind of work in the current environment as well, the different ways that you can work. Obviously working remotely is amazing because you're tapping into like any talent pool that you essentially want, because you're not restricted by, you know, location, which is obviously, whenever I hear that, I think that's amazing. So where can people find out more about Schrodinger's Catgirl, you know, backing opportunities, stretch goal opportunity, information, and that, all that kind of stuff, and obviously the like the schedule, I guess, for when you want to bring it to the next kind of stage of development?
Yeah, so we are Spider Lily Games on Twitter. We are spiderlilystudios.itch.io is where the demo is, and soon to be on Steam. But if you check out the Twitter, you'll see the links. I believe we're Spiderly Studios on Ko-fi as well, but again, links are in Twitter. And yeah, so we are, if you, the next stage is, yeah, that's basically where you'll find us. We don't have a super defined timeline yet. We set the release date for like a long time in the future. And we're like, we'll probably get it done quite a bit before then, but we just, you know, want to temper everyone's expectations. But yeah, if you want to check us out and support us, certainly the Ko-fi, the Twitter, we'll be updating things. The Kickstarter page, which we'll be posting links to on the Twitter, we'll have all the updates and news on development. I'm trying not to post there too often because I don't want to annoy people, but I really enjoy writing blog posts. So certainly keep an eye on that.
Awesome. And I will be sure to get all of the links from Els as well, so I can post it in the description of this video when it hits YouTube. So ladies and gentlemen, friends, this has been an absolutely brilliant chat with Els White, the writer, narrative designer, producer, founder, a lot of hats there, of Spider Lily Studios. He is working on the Schrodinger's Catgirl, a visual narrative adventure. It looks really, really interesting. I can't wait to check it out as well. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, a follow, and until next time, I'll be back with another amazing guest. Take care, and bye-bye.